study. Darshan Kulkarni, ladies and gentlemen, he's here to scare you because it's Monday morning. It's Monday morning, and if you're not scared, so we're starting a new study. I hope this week I have to not motivate the staff, but drive home a sense of urgency. Because if things are like for this study, and whenever a new study starts, things are always variable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we did all these things, we could start this week, but yeah, there's no need. We can just wait till next week. And so I sent a group message this morning. No, we got to start this week. I want a patient in there this week before the week's over for the new study. And that'll kickstart things. So once I do that, then they're less scared of the new study, and then it becomes a regular thing. But just one of the many hats I got to wear as a site owner these days for a small clinic. Like today is the motivator creating that sense of urgency.
So let me start off by saying you
Different
always
kind of fear than you, by the way. That's the whole point of that.
well. So today, like you, I have a bit of an interesting day. So I woke up. I'm doing two different. I do the very, very, very famous clinical trials guru slash fraud pod slash Darshan Talks right now. But right after this, I'm doing a talk on Lawline about M&A transactions and what you should be looking for in M&A transactions for a bunch of lawyers.
Okay. Respect.
And
As
then
long
I'm
as not a
talking from
TED Talks, we're good.
it's not a TED talk. I'm getting into the FDA elements. Someone else is getting into the CMS elements, and someone else is getting into the white collar crime elements. I stay the hell away from the CMS stuff. That is not what I know. But there are experts who do just that, and it's awesome.
Okay.
But there's so much stuff going on right now. Like one of the big things everyone's talking about, Dan, is, and as you know, they're talking about, well, how do I get my doctors to do more speaking and med ed? Have you heard about this whole
To become
movement of
like key
people
opinion leaders and
becoming a
such.
KOL? Yes, exactly.
Been talking about this since with you, actually,
Yeah,
since like
dude, we've been talking about this,
we're
but the point is,
early, man. We're
the world
futurists.
doesn't accept our brilliance.
Correct.
So
They laugh until they agree.
exactly.
I told
So
you guys
so
about DCT. It's over.
we'll talk DCTs as well.
Mm.
But for me, the big thing I think that's going to be interesting is I think there's been a whole bunch of cracking down on MedEd, and there's going to be more that's coming down. So
Like,
be
what is the
careful.
cracking down by who and for what reason?
So, Office of Inspector General came out, and so let's start even higher. HHS, Health and Human Services, has a bunch of different branches. One of the branches is FDA, but FDA technically reports to HHS. So a lot of people don't know that. Another division is called the Office of Inspector General. Another division is CMS.
Gotcha. So
So
HHS has oversight
OCR is
over
one of
all of
them.
them. Okay.
So you think about HIPAA, which falls under OCR, Office of Civil Rights, under HHS. You think about clinical trials, you think about FDA. You think about clinical trials, you might think NIH. You think about clinical trials, you might think CDC. You think about reimbursement, you're thinking CMS. But all of these guys fall under HHS.
Okay. Gotcha.
And if you're prosecuting, that would offer. You think about research, you're thinking ORI, Office of Research Integrity. But all of this falls under the like if everything goes wrong, OIG, Office of Inspector General, will come after you. And if they don't like it, then they'll escalate it to the Department of Justice or the U.S. Attorney's Office. So people just learned something new about how does that system work. So
thumbs up, guys. Heart, share this right now.
Hashtag.
Hashtag fraud pod.
But the question became so I don't know if you ever did this as a pharmacist. I'd get invited like the early 2000s, 2002, 2004, 2005. We'd have like a drug dinner every month or so. Some people would go every week or so.
I used to go a lot just as a private practice, like office employee slash we had a research due. They didn't know what research was, but they invited us because we're the staff.
Yeah, I think in your case,
tons of these things.
Right.
Great steakhouses too. Great steakhouses, and they try to indoctrinate you on their drug, and
yeah,
it was great. Good times.
But I was looking at videos of us recently, going back all the way to like 2008, 2009, and I was like, you could have been like in pediatrics because you could have been the child. I was like looking at it.
I had a baby face. It went away with the years of site ownership.
But the idea was then there was the farmer code, and then there were like all these new laws, and there was compliance. And essentially, what ended up happening was overall, you needed to be careful. You need to pay doctors fair market value. You can't just have someone go saying, "I'm a doctor, so you should pay me whatever I ask for to speak."
Yeah.
Because
I feel like though this is where it gets conspiratorial, and I don't want to
go ahead.
deviate too much from your
Oh, we
strict
got things.
agenda
That's fine.
because you got to leave at the top of the hour, right?
I do. I'm presenting, like I said. So let's maybe at the
So
quarter. Yeah,
let me just give me like a 1 second.
take
So
your
I
time.
feel like this is where it gets conspiratorial in the sense that these laws are in place, they're rarely enforced.
Oh, that is not true.
Okay, let's take forget the kickback one, but let's take like posting your clinicaltrials.gov study
That's.
on
Do you know how much
clinicaltrials.gov.
money people are spending on that? Like all of them. I'm not talking
Then
like
why are they not compliant? Like the majority of sponsors
they are. Why do you think they're not compliant?
are they're late because when I'm looking for a study and I know it's supposed to be there, it's not there
Because how do you know it's supposed to be there?
because we're doing the study. I'm looking for it.
No, no. My point is, there are delays in publications, so you don't
Okay,
always just
okay.
because you did something doesn't mean it goes off
Well,
immediately.
forget the conspiracy. We'll save it
Sure, sure.
for
No, but it's always
for
fun to
after
talk
dark.
about those, right? Because we're discussing FAQs and what people think
I
should
feel like a
happen.
lot of these laws are in play. They're in place, like they're
Mhm.
strict, but then they're selectively enforced based on like
So,
ulterior motives.
so let's answer that question. It's a fair question to ask, right? But it's sort of like saying there are 50 cars speeding, but the cop only stopped me.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
answer is the cop had to stop someone, and they can't go
mhm,
after all 50 cars.
right.
So you stop enough cars, enough 1 out of 50 cars, people will slow down.
Yeah.
So could they go after every single person who's late in uploading the clinical trials? No, probably not. Are they incentivized to make people try to follow things? Yeah, probably. But this was one of those scenarios where there is some level of selective enforcement, but not because they're trying to be selective as much as the practicality of it.
Fair enough. Look, you got a very strict agenda we got to follow. There was some
We don't have a
alphabet
strict
soup
agenda.
stuff.
We
Let's
can
go
get
with the
into that.
BIMO. What's the BIMO? That was number
Okay, we want to
one
start
on
with
your list.
BIMO. Let me pull it up. You want to share my
Wait,
screen?
those like in order of importance or just
It was
random?
just some stuff I threw out.
Okay, we don't have to go in order then.
No, we don't have to go in order. But I'll bring it up because
Yeah, bring it up. Let me put it up.
yeah. So this is bioresearch monitoring. So you know Patrick? Patrick used to work for BMO.
Pat Stone. Shout out to
Pat
Pat
Stone.
Stone.
Exactly. So you and I walked through the 2022 version a couple of weeks ago, a couple of
I
months
remember
ago.
that. Yeah, it was like a few months back. Yeah.
Correct. And now so they take a while to come up with the latest version. So we're 7 months in? They finally came out with the 2023 version. And I don't know, maybe the dates are slightly off. But here's what we've noticed, and let's talk through each one of them. So here's what could happen: no action indicated, voluntary action indicated, official action indicated. So no action indicated is you're probably okay. Voluntary action, agency doesn't like to make you do things. You should voluntarily choose to do things. It reminds me of my girlfriend. You should want to be with me, but tell me what you want me to do. No, you should know you should want to do it. Like, you know what? Could you just tell me? It'll just be easier. But sometimes it's easy. And if you don't listen, that's when you get the official action indicated. So
Gotcha.
same exact thing. And then there are, as you will see, remote interactive evaluations, which I guess is just a remote audit. So here is what we have, the types of inspections by center. So CBER did 7 IRB inspections, 10 CRO. That seems high, doesn't it?
I mean, my only baseline I have is the last one we did last year. So, like, I was shocked by how low those numbers were. When you hear these things from monitors, I feel like, they're telling you like the worst, like, the worst possible thing that could happen. So you expect like thousands of these inspections, and you only see like 11, 10. Kind of brings it home.
Yeah. Again,
Shout
practicality.
out to Baba Yaga. Hashtag Baba Yaga. They're trying to scare you.
Hashtag Baba Yaga. That's awesome. That fraud pod may get its own hashtag of Baba Yaga.
Right.
So sponsor investigator, CRO, sponsor CRO. What's PADE? PAD is post-marketing adverse events. Okay. And then REMS. Okay. So CBER is slow. CDER is you
Device?
remember CDER has the most funding for the most part. so they will always get most of the inspections and everything.
That's why you see 400
Correct.
for what is that CI again? The
CI
CI
is a clinical investigator.
clinical
Oh
investigator
wow, they really went after the investigators here,
in 2023.
which is basically also sites. Let's be clear about that.
It's
But I
only
think that's
sites.
interesting. So most of their energy, by far, like a 10-1, if you will,
Yeah.
is on the sites.
What's BEQ
BEQ,
for those listening?
bioavailability,
Okay.
bioequivalence,
Bioequivalent.
which again, that makes sense. You're not going to have CDRH have BEQ. The only one that would have it. But I would have thought you might see it in CBER because bioequivalence, well, I guess in the context of biosimilars, it might matter, but
If you go
maybe
down, you
not.
see total investigator slash site audits was 681 by like all these centers
Yep,
last year out of 1,000,
correct.
more than half. Maybe that's what 68% almost.
Plus or minus.
Let's say 65% of the
Yeah,
audits were sites, and then
yeah.
you have everything else. You had IRBs, you had
Here's my
CROs and
question. SIP
sponsors.
usually food. Why is the IRB for food the only one they did?
So weird.
That's
Probably
weird.
like genetically modified
But why do you need an IRB?
GMOs.
Well, I guess you do. Yeah, fair enough.
Somebody's got to eat it.
I guess. No, you're right. You're right.
Someone. I hope someone's eating it before we do, man. That's the
No, they
real
aren't.
Baba Yaga. Well,
Dude,
that's
you're gonna keep throwing Baba Yaga, aren't you?
we're
You
gonna
like
get
that?
that domain. So 10% of the audits total were sponsors and CROs.
Yeah.
About 65% were sites. So
Not 10%. Oh, 10% off all audits.
yeah,
Is that right? 1%.
no, 100 out of 1,000's 10.
So no, but 10 out of, so you're looking at all sponsor
Right, right. Yeah,
CROs.
I'm looking at total, like at the
Okay,
end
okay,
from
fair
all
enough,
these
fair enough.
alphabet soup
Okay,
departments.
fair enough.
I mean, we just know it as the FDA is coming to you.
But think of it this way, right? In the end, what is the FDA trying to do? They're trying to protect patients. So it makes sense that most of the energy goes to
Right,
the
that's
site.
where the site. Yeah, exactly,
Correct.
exactly
But
right. Makes
let's
sense.
let's the thing we don't know the answer to is what happens once you go truly decentralized.
Well, that's not happening.
But
I
let's
mean,
assume you did. Like that's the worst case scenario, right? From some people's perspective. How many audits do you have to do? Like, do you go to patients' houses at that point? Like, what do you do? What's the practical way
that
you
will
execute on that?
never be allowed, and like patient would never allow that, and
But
this
that's
would
my
never.
point.
Yeah, sites are never going away, man. Like, let's just predict the future here. Sites are never going away in our lifetime.
But I think sites will evolve.
Of
I think
course,
there'll be
they have
different versions.
evolved already since our original like days of Twitter, you and I, like in '08. Of course, they've already evolved since then. Back then, everyone was using paper. Everyone was like, the way you got patients was basically either a TV or radio ad or they're in your practice. Today, you're getting patient leads like passively through things like Patient Ace, shameless plug, or countless of other vendors that specialize in that. So imagine everything else that's going to end up becoming passive services for sites. Like what the site's core competencies are, but happening passively. That's the future. It's not getting rid of sites. It's sites being more productive, being able to do more with less,
Hmm.
and essentially having more passive activities
I
occurring.
think sites may end up becoming almost, and we're talking about this overall, right? But there might be a version where sites essentially become the data. What's the word I'm looking for?
Centers?
No, no, no. Like a data center, but I was thinking like a data watchdog. So
Mm.
they will get it from different sources. Ooh, Diego points out.
Oh, I've been ignoring the comment. Oh, there aren't any.
Yeah.
Well, except now. Dr. Martinez, how's it going? You should check out the podcast featuring Dr. Kotlier talking about FDA inspection for Science 37. Man, that sounds nasty right there. I don't know what they found. Do you
um,
know anything about this?
I don't know that specific one now.
All I know from this comment is FDA and Science 37.
Well, it's no. He's just whoever Dr. Kotlier is. They're talking about some kind of FDA inspection. I assume how to manage an FDA
I'll check it
inspection.
out. Thank you,
Yeah.
Diego. I really appreciate this. I will actually go listen to
Yeah.
this one. I took a screenshot right now.
So should we go to the next slide?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the next slide is trending. So what we're seeing is 2023 is the hot is slammed at like in the middle. It's almost doubled not almost doubled, sorry, like significantly higher than the last 3 years. So we're moving back
Sure. Moving back to a norm of
to the norm.
pre-COVID norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this does not include remote inspections, just to be clear.
Okay. I didn't even realize they do remote inspections. I mean, I guess it's possible
They do remote inspections. There's a
for
whole
sites,
category on that.
because
Yeah.
majority of
Well, we'll
sites,
find out. We haven't
yeah.
gotten there yet.
We should have Brad on. Brad had a week of the FDA in his office. He did well. Shout out to
I'm
Brad.
sure he did. I'm sure he did. Okay, so here are the most common inspection findings. Failure to comply with 1572, including following the investigational plan, inaccurate or inadequate case history records and study records, lack of accountability. This is something I've actually had to do for multiple sites, go in there and basically organize their pharmacy, basically. Subject protection form
Now, the
consent
sites that
issues.
hired you for that, just
Yeah.
I know they range,
Mhm.
probably widely, but what's the average number of studies they have at any given time?
So it depends, because I was doing it with a couple of academic institutions when I did that, and they
That's a
were
lot.
ranging. Yeah. So I've worked with academic institutions that were literally doing thousands of studies at a time.
Okay, so you're not like in a closet at some small site, like putting
Not
bottles
for
back
this
in
type of
drawers.
product. Not for this
Okay,
type of project.
okay,
For this type of project, you're usually like multiple locations. You're trying to reorganize them. There's a retail pharmacy, there's a non-retail pharmacy, there's a hospital pharmacy. How do you dispense and complying with state laws, federal laws, etc.
okay.
So yeah, essentially these are our big takeaways. Um, it all comes down to, if you keep looking at it over and over and over again, the FDA is quality organization. So to that end, all of their stuff will be around patient safety or quality that affects patient safety. So keep that in mind as you continue.
Hmm.
And we kind of got a little bit of this already, right? Clinical investigator inspection final classifications.
And can you send
No,
a link to this I'll
yeah.
post it for the audience, for the YouTube audience
So
and the podcast audience. If you're
I'm gonna,
listening right now or watching on YouTube, you'll have the link. If you're
and
watching live, you can just look at Darshan's URL right here. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So what I think is interesting is there was no action indicated in the vast majority. Thanks, Carla. I'm glad you're
Carla
enjoying it.
Vera Navas. Wow. I mean, talk about a blast from the past. How's it going?
Voluntary actions. This is so the majority didn't have anything. A minority did, and then 9 of them you had official actions,
Which
and that's
is
not good.
like, to me, that number is so low,
It is
man.
so
Like,
low.
they
FDA
scare
does
you.
not like that. They do not like to be the ones telling you what to do.
So what's that OIOAI? It means like they're forcibly shutting you down.
Not shutting you down necessarily. They're forcing you to take certain actions.
But like you're basically it's a warning letter.
No, it's more than that.
Oh,
Typically,
it's more
you
than a warning
it
letter.
might be more. It might be a
So
warning letter. It might be more than that as well. It depends on
so a
what's
warning
happening.
letter may also be part of the NAI and VAI.
No, no. So 483s might be here. I would
What's VAI again?
voluntary action.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Warning letter. I don't know. I don't know where warning letter falls. It could be either one of them.
I would imagine it wouldn't be in the NAI, no
No,
action
definitely not in the no
indicated.
action for sure. But
And
yeah,
there's 5, so the vast majority of the total, I would say that's about, let's call it 700, 500 of them. So what's 5/7? Gosh, it's way too early. 5/7,
I don't even know what you're
68,
trying to do, so I can't even help you.
68% of the sites had no action indicated, more or less.
That's high. It should be higher than that. I would have thought.
5/7, what's 5/7?
Okay, I'm just gonna. I didn't know what you were doing, so let me do it now.
I was off
Hold
by
on.
3. My
Oh, did you
internal
do it? Did you
calculator,
calculate it
yeah.
out? Okay.
Yeah, 71%.
Okay.
More or less 70% no action indicated of all audits, which is incredible finding. I think it's incredibly positive news
Yeah.
that we should shine a light on. And then voluntary action indicated, like
An official action
17%,
indicated.
and then official action indicates like less than 1%. So pretty awesome, actually.
IRBs.
It means most sites are doing things the right way.
They are. They are
70%, that's the vast majority.
correct. But also, if you look at it a different way, 70% is barely passing.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, 30% is very questionable.
Right.
Which is
Um,
where the market comes in for all all the marketers. You need
it
my
also goes to the
tool. You
80/20
need my
rule. 80% of people do things right, and you have to dedicate all of your efforts to that 20%.
Yep. Yep. Dedicate 100 of your effort to the 20%. Yeah.
So I'm not going to go into the IRBs, mostly because your audience is mostly
Yeah,
bright.
they're so ambiguous with what they want. I mean, everyone just
I think
that's the
sponsors might be
necessary evil.
interesting for some people, so we'll look at this quickly.
Sponsors,
But
yeah. Sponsors had total of in 2023. So it looks like it's reverting back to pre-COVID days almost, not yet. 2024, I think we could
your
expect.
highest, outside, yeah, the closest was, like you said, pre-COVID.
Yeah,
COVID was just dead.
makes sense though. And
Yeah.
then so
Though not
like
for Cedar. Cedar is actually still midway, I'd argue. Cedar went up. Cedar is not,
yeah.
I wonder why. Now
So
again,
CDER
we're not
again, what is
looking
the
at
acronym? What's CDER again?
Cedar is drugs, Burr is biologics, D is devices, and V is vet.
Gotcha.
So yeah. Then here are the inspection findings for sponsors: failure to monitor, failure to meet IDE requirements, failure to maintain adequate records, accountability. I find this to be interesting.
These are
Why is
for
the
sponsors,
sponsor
right?
responsible
Sponsors
for
are
accountability? This to me is a site issue.
it's I can shed some color on
Go
what I
ahead.
think. Until it gets to the site, there's nothing we can do. So like we've had cases where shipments are missing from the sponsor.
But that's still accountable because you know exactly what you sent.
We know we're accountable for like it's not our fault,
Right.
but the sponsor
Right.
sent it somewhere and that's
I
their
think it's
process.
you could be 100% right, but I would have thought it's more they just lose track of like they're in the end they're responsible, right? They need to make sure that there's
Sure.
appropriate supervision. So to me, it goes to the monitoring element,
And
and you're
it's
seeing it as the
probably
symptom.
yeah, I mean, shipping it and tracking is just one
Correct.
aspect.
Yeah.
Receiving it back,
Correct.
when
Exactly.
closeout,
Yeah.
making sure sites are either destroying it, like that is sponsor responsibility to
Correct.
ensure that that's
Exactly.
happening. And then even before, like packaging and
Yep.
storing it. So there, I mean, it makes sense.
Then failure to submit an IND, which really you shouldn't have sponsors doing that. But you're actually seeing an uptick in this. I had a client, not recently, probably about a year ago.
Well, who does the INDs if it's not sponsors?
Well, the sponsor is supposed to do it. But
Yeah.
what if you originally positioned your product as a food and then positioned it as a drug? Or vice versa. You came in as a drug, decided you don't want to pursue it. You're now a food. Do you
What
still
we're
need to
doing,
file an
mushrooms?
IND?
You're
Was
talking
that
about mushrooms?
no? But let's say we were talking about what's the red yeast. Red yeast used to be a version of that became lovastatin.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
So let's say you initially said, you know what, I think this is
Ah,
going to be a great
okay.
drug,
Hmm.
and then decided against going down the drug route. Now you're going down the food route.
Or like rapamycin, maybe. It started out as like
I
a
don't know if
mold or something.
rapamycin was a. It
They
could be
found it
right.
as
I
like a
don't know.
mold or something,
Yeah,
like a.
fair enough. Well, the
Mhm,
mycin part, yes, but I didn't. But that's still no one's eating rapamycin. No one's eating mold for the most part, unless it's cheese.
mhm.
I'm thinking more like fish oil, for example. That's another example of.
Okay, so like
Oh
nutraceutical,
no, so it might be a nutraceutical or it might be a drug.
or they could repurpose it for something else.
Correct. So those types of
Gotcha,
situations.
gotcha.
And failure to submit current list of all participating investigators 6-month intervals. Now, what you'll notice here, and someone should have messaged this out. Why am I not seeing anything on fair market value? What do you think, Dan?
Because the FDA doesn't get involved in that. That would
Exactly right.
be
Not the
CMS.
FDA's business.
Yeah.
That goes to OIG. That goes to CMS.
Hmm.
Goes to Justice Department.
Now, why do they
Uh,
try to get nosy? So monitors always told me, hey, most sites don't keep their contracts in the reg binder because if the FDA inspects, they can audit it. So you want to have a note to file that it's separate.
I would take it one step further, and this is
Yeah.
why I actually help train with inspections. Um, if the FDA asks for something, why are you giving them the entire folder? Let them ask for specifically what they're looking for. Give them the answer. Don't volunteer information. What's the point of that?
So if the FDA comes in and says, hey, I want to see the source and the regulatory documents for this study.
Great. What are you trying to achieve? Tell me what you're trying. Like, is this part of an overall plan, or where are you coming? Like, what's the reason for this?
Oh man, you're one of those guys.
Well,
Okay.
because again, everything you give is evidence.
Yeah,
I'm not just handing over evidence until I know what you're trying to achieve. I want to be helpful
I see.
because
In
if you
our
give a
case, it's
whole
that we use Creo, so you gotta have to give them access to everything on that
okay,
study, like with a email
and I think
access.
those are the types of questions you might want to restrict access until they ask for more.
Hmm.
I'm not saying you don't give them things,
Yeah,
but volunteering information will always come back to bite you.
sure.
Like I don't like people. There's some people who are like, "Oh, I want to go talk to the FDA." Why? And inevitably they do the wrong thing because they get to say that they've met with the FDA because they want that on their resume.
Like a sponsor?
No, no, no. I'm talking about like people on the site. I've been in situations like that
I mean,
where
I talked to Pat Stone. Does that count? Shout
no,
out to Patrick Stone.
because he's ex FDA. I'm talking
Okay.
about current FDA. They're doing an inspection, and what I like to do when I'm setting up my inspections is I like to have a war room, and the war room has like the CEO. They'll have like the lawyer. They might have the regulatory person. Uh, Helen,
Basic
basic
legal
legal
advice
advice.
in any
Only give what's
situation.
specifically asked for. Exactly.
I know. That's
To be
legal
fair,
advice.
here's what I know about Helen. She gives legal advice, but she also has violins. That's what I learned about Helen.
That's right. And she's a huge fan of Brewer
Stradivarius.
After Dark.
Exactly. Um, but anyways, so going back, um, they need to be overseeing the elements. CROs, sponsor CRO inspections. This is what we had. No action indicated, voluntary action indicated, official. There were no official actions indicated this year. That's kind of cool.
Hmm.
I'm actually surprised there were almost 100, well over 100 sponsors they investigated. Now it doesn't
Well,
necessarily
that I
mean
think the FDA gives their ultimate. I mean, what sponsors truly care about is getting that NDA approved, right? Not
absolutely. Yeah.
not this. Like sites and sponsors, this is where their objectives differ because sites are in this to make money and make revenues, and sponsors
Mhm.
are in this to get their drugs approved. So
Right.
it's a little different incentives.
And for sites, I think it can come back to haunt you because you may have to shut down if you have a FDA inspection with a official action indicated. Like that becomes a huge issue for some
Sure.
sites.
And if you're a sponsor with official action indicated, I mean, they're probably doing you a favor and saving you a ton of money than going through like a entire trial and just getting it rejected at the end.
But see, that's not always true. So a really famous drug for that is thalidomide. Have you heard of thalidomide? You
Hmm.
have.
Hmm.
So for those people who haven't heard of thalidomide, it's the one that used to give kids flipper wings, flipper arms, basically,
Hmm.
because it's what's called teratogenic, which means that it affects the babies. But it's now used for rheumatoid arthritis. But you need to go through the appropriate controls, make sure that you have checks and balances.
Yeah, there's actually a really good book written on that one.
Is it
It's
called voluntary? What is it? Sovereign citizen.
no, that's this one though. This is the one that everyone should read right now. Um, yeah, I have the book. It's just not on my desk right now. But yeah,
Fair enough. Uh,
uh, not enough people know about that, by the way. So thank you for
really?
bringing it
Oh,
up.
I used to teach bioethics, so I had to learn about that and teach about it.
Yeah, students do, but
Yeah. Um. So.
I like your. Well, do you want to get into
What you got?
not telehealth fraud?
We can get
What's
into that.
what's this OSIS report? What
Well,
is?
it's a continuation of this. So let's see if there's anything
Yeah,
you
let's go
let
with
you
that.
tell. So I was thinking we can go through this and we can do more if we want to.
Yeah, let's do it.
Like, let's not jump because. Let me ask the audience this: do you guys want to stay here, or you want to move us to something else? Because we've got a lot of ideas
Restaurant
we can
has
go after.
5 talking points, and one of them might be confidential.
Really? Oh yeah. Well, one of those is you and me.
That's what I'm
But
saying. I'm
fair enough.
okay with it going public with it, but
Oh, a little early for that, don't you think?
no.
But um,
It's all
but
about
okay.
the execution, man. It's not the idea.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. So in
Let's
fact,
stay.
it's
Let's
already been
stay.
done, right?
Let's stay. Yeah,
Well, let's
OSIS.
make it, let's say it's not confidential. I'm just going to put it out there because why the hell not? What do you guys think about the idea of going in and helping retail pharmacies learn how to do clinical trials?
And we're not talking Walgreens and
Correct.
CVS
Small mom and
and
pop stores.
Sam's Club. We're talking ABC Pharma, Alpha Pharmacy, like the ones on the corner, mom and pop, where you know the
Yeah,
pharmacist.
correct.
They
They're
got
looking for
tight
revenue. They're
relationships with the
strapped. Yeah.
community physicians around town. Those kind of pharmacists. I think there's huge potential there.
I think they have the same access. What they don't have is, and this is the same issue I had with the large pharmacies as well, which is you don't actually have the ICD-9 codes. I know I didn't when I worked as a pharmacist. I would just go, you're taking fluconazole, probably have a fungal infection. You're taking, I don't know, Zoloft. You're probably looking at anything from depression to anxiety to something else like that. So do I have the official ICD-9 code? No. And that doesn't matter as much at the pharmacy level because you're looking at interactions. You're
Well,
looking less at efficacy, you're looking more at safety.
sure, but even before you get to that, you get the
Mhm.
privilege of getting into that.
Right?
A lot of these pharmacists are going to argue, I'm a doctor, I should be a PI. And the answer
No, they
is
aren't. They aren't.
they are. I'm telling you on
They're telling you
LinkedIn,
already? I didn't know
there's
that.
doctors, there's Chris and I consult with a lot of
Really?
potential sites, and before they become clients, they're potential clients, right? And we've had a lot of pharmacists say, well, why can't I be the PI? Well, no,
Yeah,
technically you can. Then they start digging through the regulations. It's like, do you want to like do business or do you want to like make a theoretical argument?
right,
Because
right,
you're not going to find anything in the regulations that you need to be an MD. But
right.
no,
You need
I
to be
tell them
appropriately qualified.
exactly. But I tell them go try to get any study right now that you
But
can
it's not
make
even
money.
that. It's simpler than that. How are you going to diagnose it to see if the a subject is doing well or badly on the drug? You're not qualified
Well,
to.
they think that they can get an NP or a PA, and like you can.
So you could theoretically, and there are states where you can do it. NP is your PI. The pharmacist can't be the PI because you just couldn't do a lot of it. But the NP theoretically might be able to. The problem is you'll have a lot of sponsors saying that I don't want to do it
Yeah,
through an
we're
NP.
not going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's enough sites to where I don't need
Right.
this risk.
Right.
And I've watched enough fraud pod for I don't want to be one of those OAIs. I
Yeah,
don't want to be
you're
the
just trying
first
to
one
throw
on
out. Oh,
Darshan's
okay, okay.
list,
Look
and
at
then
you throwing out words
Darshan,
like OAI. Look at you.
and then Darshan and Dan will make an entire hour dedicated to our foolishness. So no. So that's the thing. Once you get over that hurdle, right? You need a doctor, a
Yeah.
physician, to come to the pharmacy if that's going to be the site. They're obviously you don't need to worry about referral source or anything yet, but the PI needs to have a regular presence there, like coming to
Hmm.
sign stuff. Yeah,
Hmm.
you can have like e-signatures on lab results, but the PI needs to see the patients regularly. That's
Hmm.
called oversight. Once
Hmm.
you get over that,
Going back again to the inspection, bring it up.
yeah, you don't want to be on this list. You don't want to be a statistic.
Failure to monitor is what the sponsors have to do. And where did that go? Hold on. IRBs,
Sites are going to be failure to have
failure to follow the
PI
investigation
oversight.
plan, and safety reporting. That's what you're dinging doctors for.
Right. Now, once you get over
Accountability.
that, let's say
Yeah,
the pharmacist says, hey, you know what? I've got tight relationships with a few doctors, different
yeah,
specialists.
yeah,
I
yeah,
got that. No problem. I like to hear that as a consultant. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
good. Now we have something to work with. What does your office space look like? Well, if it's like most pharmacies, you don't actually have enough space to do a significant number of trials, right? And
Right.
uh, one where you're actually doing, you have an interesting business as far as revenue is concerned. So you need to figure out, okay, I need private rooms, I need exam room. The layout of a site is very different than the layout of a pharmacy.
Is it
And
very different or is it adjustable though?
it's adjustable if you
Yeah.
build walls and
Yeah.
you make
Yeah.
doors, but how many pharmacists do you know want to do that? I mean, unless they're
Well, the
going to
question is
have to,
how much revenue would justify it? And I
right?
think once we start showing those numbers, a lot of that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. I mean, we even have like the contracting guys come in to build walls. Like
But
Jaime and I, my NP, have it down. We're not working with pharmacists, but
right.
we can turn any space really into a research clinic. And
Bring up a thing from Helen. Bring up the latest thing from Helen. I think that's interesting.
oh, Helen,
Yeah.
Helen, I actually complained to Walgreens Corp because I started getting clinical trial recruitment letters based on my prescription list.
But that's interesting. So they might not do a full clinical trial site, but they could become recruitment centers.
No one needs that though. No one
You
needs
don't
that
think?
anymore. That part of the
Oh,
clinical trial equation is not solved, but it's the closest to getting solved.
oh, interesting.
Shout out to Patient Ace, my company. We're one of the many players
Right.
doing a decent job. You don't need Walgreens to waste time on that. And what happens when you have multiple players doing the same thing well? Becomes commoditized, prices go
But it's
down.
already commoditized. I think that's what people want, right?
Sure, so then Walgreens shouldn't do that.
No, but it's not
Walgreens no.
Walgreens. I'm thinking, what if it's your mom and pop store going, I have this patient population.
Yeah, no, they should be the site.
They should be the site. Okay.
They should not be a vendor.
Okay.
My
Um,
opinion. To a man with a hammer, everything's a nail. But
fair enough. Um, so I think this is. I want to finish this off quickly so that we just want to make sure we're BAB. We're not going to do any of
well, at this
that.
point, we have no choice, man. 14 minutes left. Let's go
Well,
through this.
I can't even do all 14 minutes because I have to speak. I have to do that presentation.
Ah,
Uh, but Helen points out a good point. I've been in those. Big box pharmacies have mini clinics.
yep, I've been in those too. But a mini clinic is not a site.
But I think you could adapt it. It's
If
not a
there's
site,
enough
but it's a good
space, yes.
jump-off point.
If there's enough space, yes.
Yeah.
Do you know how much, like, this is underestimated how much space a clinic needs, even if you use eSource, eReg. Monitors come in frequently. What do you do when two monitors come in on the same day for different studies? You're not going to put them in the same room.
But maybe they don't have to be in the same room. You have to just give them, again, like you said, a closet with a table.
Sure, or at the Starbucks, like across the
No,
street.
you couldn't do Starbucks. That would be hugely problematic.
You see, so you need to consider these things.
Because you can't be walking out with patient data, right?
No,
I wouldn't let anyone walk out with my patient
no,
data.
no, or connect to that like Starbucks Wi-Fi. Heck no.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
one time my bank got hacked was when I logged in to check my balance on a public Wi-Fi at Starbucks. 30 minutes later, I get a call from my bank. Are you in Dallas, Texas, buying this at Macy's? I'm like, no, I'm in LA right now at a Starbucks. Okay, well, we shut down your card because somebody got your info.
But I don't think I think you're doing the cause effect may not be as simple as that because usually that's
I don't know,
Have
man.
you
I mean,
have you ever been to the Pawn Me? Have I been pawned? Have you checked that out before?
no.
Okay, hold on.
It's always in high density areas where Wi-Fi is like there's traps.
Okay, because you are Dan Safara. What is your email address, Mr. Safara?
Damn, you're gonna dox me right now, Dan Sfera. Put Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Everyone can message me right now.
14 different data breaches. You are
Nice,
in
man.
all of these. LinkedIn,
Ah, LinkedIn got me
MySpace,
twice.
Tumblr, Zynga,
Wow.
Epic, Cafe Press. None of these were Starbucks, just to be clear.
Huh.
So that shows you when, like, that's just based on your email address. So
I'm gonna check it out with my other emails.
fair enough. But that should. So my point is that might not be the only way.
Yeah.
Let's see what
Sure,
else.
but there's a lot of reasons why those
Absolutely.
mini clinics wouldn't work for
Yeah,
the sites.
but I think to your point, I think if we can demonstrate the kind of value it brings,
Yeah.
I think pharmacies are a great location to
Huge
set that up.
unlock. And they're the ones suffering the most from the PBMs and
Correct.
pharmacy benefit managers. And
Yep.
they're worse off. An independent pharmacy is worse off than an independent private practice right now.
Oh, 100%.
And I hear the independent private practice crying to no end
Right.
on how they're getting squeezed and how,
Yep.
it's not for them.
The moment you have
Imagine these
private payers
pharmacists.
and government payers, you start getting squeezed a lot. So
Yep.
there are pharmacies who straight up go, "I'm only accepting what's the insurance, but I'm like slip
Blue
and fall
Shield.
kind of insurance,
Oh,
like automobile and that kind of insurance." And they're like, because I don't want to deal with government payers because governments tend to pay very, very little.
Hmm.
But in this case, with clinical research, what you do have is essentially private payers. You've got the
Yeah.
drug companies that'll pay.
And this is where I think we have something.
Yeah,
The big box retailers, like there's enough money to be made starting a site,
yeah.
like for an average Joe
Hmm.
to for it to be significant. Whereas for Walgreens, they want to get into like the more
They need
sophisticated stuff.
volume. The difference is it's sort of like it reminds me of I'd read this like going back 20 years, but like for Abbott, for a drug to be worth it, and I'm making up like it may not be Abbott, it may not, or Pfizer. For a
Sure.
drug to be worth it, it needs to at least have a market of $250 million. If not, they just don't. Even if it will be successful, they can't pursue it. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, and Pfizer was foolish for not buying Viking Therapeutics, by the way. Stupid.
As someone who did, I think I bought Viking at some point. I don't know if I still own it. But my point being, in those scenarios, wait, what was I talking about?
Like for the small chain pharmacy, it
Yeah,
makes sense to start a site. For Walgreens, it
correct.
doesn't. That's why they failed.
But my point is that it might be because small pharmacies can absorb a little bit of a loss center if it's all they're taking up is space. On
Yes.
the other hand, the amount of resources a Walgreens would take is so substantial that just that break even would be much higher.
Yeah.
Helen points out big box pharmacies would be good for post marketing studies.
Yeah, but those budgets
Maybe,
are small.
yeah. I'm not 100% convinced, Helen.
And
Um,
only if Walgreens is going to be like the only source of patients for the entire trial, like maybe Lilly partners with Walgreens.
but
I
they
can
have a
see that
but they
happening.
have lots of access. You've got to give them
Yeah.
that. What they
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
have is
of course.
clarity. But
And they
from
got
what I
retention tools. We have to buy all our patient snacks for longer visits. Walgreens has it right there. I don't think they'd give it for free though.
I think what the key piece will be, and here, so there's something called anonymization and pseudo anonymization. Do you know what that is?
Not in
Okay,
this context.
not really. Okay, so anonymization is you really don't know who you're talking to. Pseudo anonymization is if you put in more data sources, I can tell you who you're talking to. Now, in this scenario, you don't know much about the patient, but if you add additional data, you might be able to identify the patient with a lot more clarity. And I think that's where this is where a Walgreens and stuff can do a lot of things that a traditional site can't do,
Sure,
just on a
sure.
sheer volume basis.
There's just not a well, that's a different business altogether than having a site and doing patient
No,
visits.
no, that's not what I mean. No, so here's the fundamental difference about what I'm talking about. I don't know what Walgreens is doing, just to be clear. So this is we're not picking on
Yeah, I have
Walgreens. I
no
don't
idea
even know
what.
what their model is. But if they were centralized, truly centralized, and they buy from IQVIA or whatever source they're going to go to, and they go where we've identified these patients, we know that they are at these pharmacies at these
Mm,
times.
mhm.
We're going to target them, and now you geofence around them, and you basically say, if you want to be in the study, go to this pharmacy and sign up. You could make a killing with that because no one can compete against that.
But somebody still has to pre-screen, convince those
But,
patients to come in.
but to your point, if you've set up those pharmacies to do exactly that, whether it's a mom and pop store or a large big box pharmacy, they do have to do all the pre-screening and everything.
Yeah,
But my point is they're set up for that. What I'm saying is reach out to Dan and Darshan and we'll help you set up.
yeah. I think you just got to go all the way with this because it's not. I think it's just a
If you
safer
like
bet.
double D's, come to us.
Huh?
If you like double D's, Darshan and Dan, come to us.
Ah, okay. Good
See?
call to action. I like that. And the Baba Yaga
And
as well.
Baba Yaga.
Yeah. All right, Darshan.
Okay,
I know you
we
got
got
to
a
go,
call.
man. This is
This
gonna
was
be a
awesome.
great article as well. Like,
Thanks, Ed, and
subscribe.
everyone for commenting. We appreciate it. We didn't even get through one, and we had like 5 topics planned.
Yeah, I knew that was gonna be impossible, man. Um, everyone go follow Darshan right now. His LinkedIn is underneath or in the show notes. Bye bye.
Bye.